Okay. Good evening. Welcome, everybody. I think we're still expecting a handful of people to come in. If you didn't see it in the chat, Christina says hello. Her microphone isn't working and she wanted to share her welcoming wishes. So love to call you out there, Christina. I'm going to give it just a little bit more time in case we have another person or two that wants to connect before we get started, if that's okay. In the meantime, I will go ahead and get my screen sharing.
Julie, how was the sophomore chat?
Sophomore chat was great. Lots of engaging questions and great information. Everybody seemed very pleased with what they learned. Lauren did a great job and Monique was on the call, so that was very, very helpful.
Thanks.
Thank you for asking. All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? We're going to officially call the meeting to order. Someone could motion to call the meeting to order.
I motion to call the meeting to order.
Thank you. Thank you, Trudy. Anyone second?
I second.
Thank you so much. Those in favor, say aye or raise hands. And okay, we're going to go ahead and call to order. Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday, though that seems like ages ago. And nobody can see outside beyond 10 feet. So that's kind of a little daunting as well, as we're in the winter doldrums, it feels like. But we're going to be happy here tonight at our PTSO meeting. So even though we don't have the sunny background from Mr. Ebert displaying, but we'll all get his office pick so we can do that next time. Very wonderful meeting tonight to attend. So happy to have Dr. Matt Joynt here with us to give us an update on all things going on with the Board of Education and MTSD. So very excited to have you here, Dr. Joynt. Thank you so much. And of course, always delighted to have our student representative and faculty liaison, Melissa Blahnik, and of course, Principal Ebert. Very grateful for your participation in these meetings every time. So thank you so much. I think I'll just go ahead and kick it off and get started. Do we have Austin on the phone? Does anybody see him online? I've got too many screens in front of me, so I can't quite tell.
Hi, Austin isn't able to be here, so I'm just here to share the information.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for jumping in. I appreciate you raising your hand. Sophie, yeah, yes. If you could go ahead and do the student council report, that'd be great. Welcome.
Thank you. To start off, Student Council had a very successful toy drive. We had volunteers organize and decorate for CAPCO, and we collected over $1,000 in toys and donations. To continue, our blood drive is fastly approaching, and the Student Council is working really hard to plan and prepare for 120 donors. Our theme is Led by Love to honor Valentine's Day and the importance of kindness and love, and of course, our amazing QV Jordan Love. Also, would PTSO be willing to find 2 volunteers for the drive for the time slots 8 to 10:30 and 10:30 to 1, if that's possible?
I think we can definitely accommodate that. We will follow up with you, Sophie, and make sure that we can get a couple of volunteers for you, but we can either, put the word out there, or if there's anyone here tonight that's willing to do it. What day is the actual blood drive?
The blood drive is February 9th.
Okay. So if there's anyone that can commit to it now, let us know. Otherwise, we'll put the word out in our short kilts and we'll look to find you a couple of volunteers. So you said, what were the times? 8 to 10:30 and
10:30 to 1.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. And we have 10 slots before 7:25 that will not be used by students. Are we able to provide a link to sign up with instructions after we start signups for students?
Absolutely.
Thank you. We want as many donors as we can get first, then we can fill them up with parents. However, it will be difficult to get adult donors into the high school after 7:25. So just to keep in mind. Perfect. Thank you. And to conclude, the junior members of our student council will be meeting tomorrow to begin planning and preparing for prom 2024 on April 13th at Discovery World. We'll have more details next month. And we were wondering if PTSO is still willing to be a source of financial support for students who cannot afford to attend. And of course, these students will be identified and vetted by guidance counselors and administration.
Absolutely. You have our support there. We've been happy to do it in the past, and we will absolutely do it again this year.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, Sophie, that was wonderful. Appreciate your report, and I will follow up with you, or we will follow up with you to make sure that we have all the right information and can get you a couple of volunteers for those dates, or for that date, those times.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, we appreciate you joining us. Okay, Ms. Blahnik, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Sophie, for that great information. I know teachers and staff just got information on the blood drive today about how they could get involved as well. So that's a great thing you guys are doing. I know it seems a while ago, but I have a couple thank yous first before my update. So even before conferences, I just wanted to thank the PTSO for providing us for sweet treats in the staff lounge. That was a really wonderful surprise. It was great to head out to break with that, so we really appreciated it. We had conferences last week before we did. It was awesome to be able to be provided with Chinese food and a bag of snacks. I know I saw Rachel in there. She even handed me a paper bag, and I was like, this is the best day of my life. I just carted all this stuff out to my room, so we really appreciated it. Thank you so much for doing that. I know Roberta sent out an email to Mr. Ebert and I, for sure us, perhaps other people were on the email as well, but about the opportunity for grants again. So for teachers and for clubs, I sent the email to Nancy to send it out to staff and club leaders. And then I just sent another reminder. So hopefully you're getting some of that those applications. I know I just printed off one for the president of Best Buddies today. So if you don't have any yet, hopefully they'll be coming. So thank you again for giving us that opportunity and to extend that for clubs as well. I know some of the student presidents and whatnot are really excited about that and have some ideas of things that they want to apply for. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
After break, we teachers and staff and students were in full swing in try 2, off to a successful start, several weeks in here now. We just had again last week our conferences. They were both with Meet the Teacher online, but then also the opportunity to meet with students and families in the field house. To my understanding, it was a great turnout. I think Mr. Ebert will probably talk a little bit more about that. Some other things on the mind of staff and students, course registration. Again, you'll probably hear a little bit more about it, but in different grades this week, students are meeting with their counselors. We just had in homeroom a little while ago more information that students received in their homerooms. I have seniors, so I didn't get that same information, but I know they got course-specific scheduling information. And then this week, been meeting with their counselors. They have a sheet to fill out. I believe it's due next week with their course selections. Beyond course registration, we also have some exciting things that have been taking place. I know basketball had their inclusion night the same day we actually had conferences, couple student speakers. I think we had both wins, correct me if I'm wrong, for the girls and boys that night. So exciting stuff. I know there's hockey. The elementary night had to be changed from the snow day, but I believe it's now this Sunday. It's going to be at the Ozaki Ice Center at 10:30. So I know Mr. Navarre and the students are excited about that. We got a wrestling meet on Friday. And then obviously the musical Oklahoma is next weekend. I have a lot of my students that are either starring in it or they're in the orchestra or helping to direct. I know that's on their minds, and Miss Fig as well. So a lot of students and staff preparing for a successful musical. I think I'm going to go on Sunday. I'm pretty excited about that. And I think, did I miss anything? I know I was rambling on here. I think those are the big highlights. Again, more on course registration, I would imagine as well, but that is my update.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very complete. Very good update. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
A lot has happened, actually.
Yeah.
A lot going on.
Happy
Anybody
to answer
have
any questions.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions? All right, let's go ahead and move along. Mr. Ebert, I'm going to roll it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Thanks, Melissa. You did a really good job explaining some of the great stuff that's gone on over the last couple of months at Homestead. I will add a couple of things. I think you really covered a lot of it, though. I'm pretty happy with the way that you gave your report. Nice job.
Stealing your thunder though, right?
No doubt, no doubt, but that's all right. I can add a couple of comments. Course registration, she's right. Melissa's right. The sophomores were working on their course selection today with counselors, and the juniors were working on it yesterday. It's a big week. I don't know how much thought goes into it ahead of time for the sophomores and juniors, but certainly by now, they're thinking through what those 15 slots look like. Melissa indicated that there was a kickoff. It was Tuesday, January 3rd. I think I talked about the last time we were here. Starts with a video from me, kind of talking about what the expectations are for registration and what thoughts kids should be having as they sign up for those courses. So it's always good to stop in there. I was in yesterday and today in a few of the different groups and seeing what kids are signing up for, talking to them about why they're signing up for them. And then again, reminding kids that balance is an important part of their schedules. And we don't always see it necessarily in the 15 slots, the balance, but it is key to be sure to be thinking about what you're passionate about, and then also to be thinking about some of those other things that you know what you might have interest in, and to give them a shot. They don't have to have the AP label or the honors label. We have all sorts of good, rigorous classes all over the building. So we'll see where that ends up on January 31st when the due date is. And then I get the privilege of starting to work through building a master schedule for 24-25. So quite a bit of work that goes into that for a lot of people, but it's a great time to be thinking about next year. Parent-teacher conferences, I want to reiterate what I thought was a really good night. I got really positive feedback once again regarding Meet the Teacher. There's no doubt we'll continue with that platform as we move forward. 37% of families participated in second trimester. It was actually the exact same last year for second trimester, and 6% less than first trimester. I don't know if that's a given that's going to happen. I don't know. 37% is good. Of course, we want more, right? So the more we can all do to encourage people to participate in those super important conversations with teachers in order to create, partnerships to support kids is really, really important. I know Melissa talked a minute ago about the importance of those things and really helping kick off the last 30 days of the trimester to support kids. The Chinese food was fantastic. Maybe the night got long again with people being tired after eating a big plate of Chinese food, but the teachers. But you know what? We can live with it. It was really good. In regards to the PTSO mini grants, Melissa's done a really good job getting information out about that. If we haven't been seeing those things coming in, I promise you that you will. There's been a number of people who have come through me to get some things, I guess, verified so that they could send along. So important that we're seeing some of those things. Melissa mentioned about a student club. Well, Best Buddies is what you said. There's been a couple of student clubs that have come forward, so it'll be interesting to see what those end up looking like, and the PTSO's thoughts related to that. Happy to help as that comes around. It's state mandated standardized testing season again, coming up into the spring. And our juniors, of course, will take the ACT on March 19th. That's been set for a while. There'll be more information to all junior families coming from me about testing specific stuff at a later time. But most importantly, we've set our dates for what will be our free ACT prep sessions. Just haven't gotten that stuff out yet. Noting that the ACT doesn't happen until 2 weeks after third trimester, so you really kind of want to play the balance of finish out second trimester, and then maybe focusing on that test. But we'll have 3 math sessions. We'll have some English and reading sessions with some grammar mixed in, and we'll have some science sessions, excuse me, and opportunities for kids to work with counselors too. So information will coming from me to juniors. Highly recommend getting kids signed up for that. And if you don't have a junior, be thinking about it for when they become a junior, or if you know somebody with a junior, have them sign up. I think it's really important stuff. All juniors are welcome. With that, with testing, AP boost sessions will be that will be set in March. It's a little early to talk about those things, but we are nearing the end of Try-2, right? And that's when the AP classes end. Students will know something about those schedules before the end of trimester 2, so their teachers can be talking about that stuff. Good things moving forward. I'm also excited about the musical. I haven't figured out exactly what day I'm going yet, but I typically like to go on opening night, so it might be on the 1st. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So many kids involved. It's fun to see. And I talk to Fig all the time, and Mr. O, who's overseeing the pit. And I think they're perpetually in a state of we've got so much to work on and get prepared. But we know Tech Week is upon us next week, and those kids will be ready to go. They always are. The blood drive, which we heard Sophie talk about a little while ago, permission slips, sign-up opportunities coming for students. Just want to make a note that I love our students. The blood drive is a tradition at Homestead, and something that is, I mean, obviously very useful and helps kids develop those skills, those charitable skills, those fundraising skills, in support of other people. Yeah, it reminds me of the kickoff we had for Relay for Life just a few weeks ago. Hockey had a game in support of that raised funds in support of our Relay for Life group. So did boys and girls basketball, obviously in support of the American Cancer Society and their research. And on top of that, to try to kick it off, a group of students helped create a teachers versus students dodgeball game that took place on, I don't know, a Thursday night in early January. And then there were donations as a part of it. So just a way to raise awareness and have some fun. Melissa didn't bring it up. Maybe she's being a little bit what's the word?
Humble?
All I can say, humble. Yeah, it's the word. Thank you. All I can say is you should have seen her throwing and catching those balls. Very impressive. We had a fun night. April 26th, Dr. Joynt, I think we'll talk about this coming up, but I'll just make a quick comment. April 26th will be a student contact day at HHS, which was otherwise labeled as a flex day. That second snow day it requires us for the need for instructional minutes to have class on that day. So I won't take any more thunder from Dr. Joynt. I think he intends to talk about that a little bit, and I certainly will stick around and answer questions about that and our steps moving forward should people have them after he's done. Looking forward to a great finish to the winter sports season. Melissa mentioned a few things that are going on coming up. There's actually a boys basketball game happening right now. The girls just beat Brown Deer a little while ago. And so we've got some really good finish to the year with not only those sports, but the other sports going on as well. Happy to take questions now or wait to take some in a little while.
Mr. Ebert, I have a question actually.
Yeah,
just
Rachel.
to circle back to conferences.
Yep.
I mean, I think the percentage is low, but that's a different thing. My question is, are the teachers having to go out of their way for parents who do not show up that night? What's the percentage of that kind of situation happening? Because in my opinion, unless there's an extenuating circumstance, the teachers are giving of themselves for that evening and everybody knows those dates. They shouldn't have to extend themselves unless there's an extenuating circumstance. So I was just curious as to how often the teachers are having to extend themselves given the low percentage of parents attending.
Well, I'll start with saying the percentage. Obviously, we'd love 100%. I don't think 40% or so is all that bad. It fills up our slots, and we have we have a strong parent commitment to connecting with our teachers. We try to make it easy as possible with these 5-minute time slots, and both providing the virtual and in-person opportunity. But Rachel, you and I both know it doesn't always work in everyone's schedule. And then there's
No,
occasionally,
I know.
yeah, and then there's occasionally people who would like to be able to meet outside of those times. I'll put it like this. It's important to us to be able to communicate with parents. And so if we have to call somebody during a prep time or after school the next day or sometime in the next week, I'll speak for Melissa and everybody else, but I think we're happy to do it in order
Oh,
to.
that's not the question. I know that, and the teachers extend themselves so much,
Yeah.
just on a general basis. It's not a fault of the teachers.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I think parents should be more cognizant and more planning. Obviously, if you can't do it, it's only one night, you can't do it. But I just feel that you guys really extend yourselves, and it is a really good night, and the teachers really do a great job. But it's a very long day for them, and I think everybody should be cognizant of it.
Thanks for the positive comments. And that's why, the food and all the support from you guys is always very, very much appreciated. But it really, the conferences really should kick off the last 30 days. So a teacher can be connecting with that parent on an as needed basis moving forward, so we can make sure students have success in those classes. So it is part of the job. I get what you're saying, extending themselves. We have great teachers that will go above and beyond. Melissa's absolutely one of those people. But it's the work we want to be doing, right? That's the work we want to be doing to ensure that kids are getting what they need. So yes,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
my process has always been to send 2 weeks out. That every communication I send is 2 weeks out from what's happening. And so 2 weeks out from parent teacher conferences, we give hey, in 1 week, you're going to have the opportunity to sign up for these. Some people on the call are ready to go at that 7 a.m. mark on the Thursday before. And other people wait until that next reminder comes, the day before. It is what it is.
Right.
Obviously, if you sign up earlier, you got a better chance of getting the time slots you want. But even a few people came in person again and hadn't signed up, were able to populate their schedules a little bit, and they're able to get around and see people.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good process, I think. But yeah, Rachel, thanks again.
The teachers are exceptionally accommodating. There is just no question. And that Meet the Teacher is excellent. It's really easy to navigate. And so it's a great piece. But I just think people need to remember, like, the teachers are really putting themselves out there. They're taking time away from, obviously it's part of their schedule, but they're away from their families on those evenings, and it's a very, very long day for them. So we just need to remember that.
Great point. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Rachel. I just want to call out, again, Linda Walsh and her leadership on the Staff Appreciation Committee, doing such a great job keeping you all well fed and treated with all kinds of goodies. And then one point, go ahead.
Linda's there for hours getting stuff prepared and handed out to people. It's fantastic.
She is. She's a machine. And one thing I thought I would just echo, because it came up in the sophomore chat, and that's about balance in the scheduling, planning your scheduling, your course scheduling. That came up in the sophomore chat as well as something to kind of keep in mind. And you mentioned that too, Mr. Ebert. So I thought I would just kind of echo that, since it was in both groups.
I'm sure you heard it from Monique and from Lauren. It's really our language. And junior year, I saw it today with kids signing up. Is a year that really you might think overextending yourself is a good idea, and it's not worth the additional effects on your well-being for to be in the most rigorous of classes to show colleges. It's just not what is necessary. A mixture of things, it really what colleges are looking for. So yeah, appreciate you bringing that back up.
Absolutely. Does anybody have any questions right now for Mr. Ebert? All right, Dr. Joynt, the floor is yours. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Julie. And do I have the ability to share my screen? Is that all right?
You absolutely do. Let me just stop my share, and you should be able to jump in.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Those that have your videos on, can you just give me a thumbs up?
Yeah,
that you-
we got
Okay,
you.
right.
We got.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate the chance to get to hear some of the reports as well. I'll note that I am offsite. I'm in one of our buildings here. I volunteer some of my time when I can in evenings, helping with some of my boys' basketball practices. So I've got kids poking their heads in the window, wondering what I'm doing in a classroom here. And so I'm excited to provide the report, answer some questions. Mr. Ebert said he'd stick around because I think with some of what I have to share, likely there's some building specific questions. And then I'm going to pop out. I'm not going to stay for the rest of the meeting. Just know that I'm headed to make sure that some of our kids have what they need. So
Well, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
yeah, of course. I'm excited to be able to provide some information without getting into the topics right away. I think what will be clear to many in the Zoom room, or what I hope is clear, is that providing high quality public education to our students takes lots from those you've heard from. You heard from a student representative, you heard from one of our teachers, you heard from Mr. Ebert and one of our building administrators, and a lot of what we're doing is influenced ultimately at the state level and with how our board is able to respond and provide policy and guidance with regard to requirements and activity that happens at that state level, and then how, whether it be the board and a combination of the administration or the administration in an effort to work with the board, is involved with the community and with our schools in working through different decisions at different times. So let me first start by sharing my appreciation with this group. So we should always start from a place of gratitude. And I appreciate the Homestead High School PTSO, and not only your support for our students and our teachers, but for the community and for public education. So I'll end with that thank you as well, but I wanna start there too. I want to give some brief updates on a few things. If you attended, I believe, Julie, it would have been the November meeting, President Shelley Burns from the Board of Education presenting. Yep. I think I have 3 or 4 of her slides that I won't spend a lot of time on, but in the case that there's anybody here that wasn't at the November meeting, I want to at least have a small bit of context so that I can pick up where Shelley left off and connect some dots. But we'll talk a little bit about the budget crisis and the use of zero-based budgeting. I'll share a little bit of what direction things are headed in decision-making. A very popular topic this time of year, I will talk school closures due to inclement weather, and we'll have some high school specific information that Mr. Ebert has already shared a little bit of information about. And then I'll spend a little bit of time on the new state mandate that came through in December on a personal finance credit required for graduation that, depending on who you are, may affect nobody in this Zoom room, but if you've got an 8th grader transitioning into the 9th grade, ultimately at some point will. So that's my plan in terms of hitting on a few topics from a superintendent's perspective that will include some opportunities to share our work at the state level with the Board of Education and here in our buildings. I noted that I was going to touch on the budget crisis and try and pick up on where President Burns left off in November. The question being, how did we get here? This is one of the slides that President Burns would have shared, noting that the current state of Wisconsin continues to provide school districts inadequate sustainable funding. That's described with a chart. I believe this is one that she would have shared. This is with information put together by the Legislative Fiscal Bureau, but for the state of Wisconsin. And when you track public school funding from year to year, when you look at 2012, the state funding model went away from increases for public schools indexed to the cost of living or indexed to inflation. And with that, with going away from that over the course of time, when you look at that 2011-12 school year and carried all the way out to the 22-23 school year, our last full school year last year, you see a difference of $3,235 per pupil. So you multiply that out by the student enrollment, that is quite a sum that we're working to make work, noting that when you're talking about being indexed to the cost of living or inflation, everything costs more. And so you're trying to do as much as you have been or more with less. The other slide she would have shared with you is the other major bucket that that we have advocated for some support and assistance with, and noted that it is a driver to the budget crisis that we're in. Special education and the services associated with it are ones that we are very proud to provide here in the Mequon-Thiensville School District. And we have some really talented special education staff and faculty that do a great job working with some very important and engaged families and our students. The cost of special education services is interesting. Those services are required by law in that they're part of a special education student's individualized education plan, or IEP. So there's not the choice to provide those services or not. They legally must be provided, and the state reimburses a certain amount towards the cost of those services. When you look at this chart and look at 2017, the state was reimbursing school districts at nearly 50%, at a nearly 50% rate. Because those services must be provided, then the school district, in this case, the Mequon-Thiensville School District, must transfer money from its general fund into the special education fund in order to cover the full cost of those services. So in 2017, that transfer was $1.5 million. Fast forward to 2022, 5 years, the state's reimbursement rate dropped down to nearly 30%. And with that drop in reimbursement and increasing cost of special education services, the transfer from our general fund into paying for those special education services here locally was $4.5 million, a $3 million difference. With this last biennial budget, the state did increase their amount of reimbursement to sneak just up over 30%, 33.3%. And with the increasing cost of services, our transfer was $5 million. So that deficit related to having to cover the cost of unfunded special education services at the state level continues to grow. The state has put groups together on this, both for public school funding and special education reimbursement. A bipartisan group's recommendation by state policy leaders was a goal of 60%. And you can see that they're just a little bit over halfway there years later after those decisions. Nationally, the state ranks 34th in special education teacher pay. So those 3 slides were shared, and I think this is the other one that Shelley provided. So going into the biennial budget last spring, what we were advocating for, asking for in order to provide services like we have, is that we needed $1,500 per pupil over the course of 2 years. The biennial budget in the state of Wisconsin is over the course of 2 years, the 23-24 school year, that's this school year, and next school year, 24-25. And we asked for them to consider 100% reimbursement for allowable special education services. You would have read headlines come July that the state passed a biennial budget with a record amount of money for public schools. And while there was funding for public schools, it wasn't spread equitably throughout the state. Some districts benefited differently than others, depending on what their revenue ceiling is. And ultimately, all schools ended up with a $650 per pupil allotment over 2 years. So it's not like the schools got nothing. Now that said, in a property-rich school district, in a school community where the property is considered highly valuable, property-rich community, not all that money is spendable dollars. In fact, much of that $650 per pupil lowers the tax rate for our residents, which is great from a resident standpoint. From a public school district standpoint, it doesn't put money in the proverbial pocket of the school district. It's not spendable dollars. And they increased, like I said before, that special education reimbursement rate for services to 33%. So when it's all said and done, our challenges, when we say we don't use the term budget crisis lightly. Our operational revenue, the money we use to pay for our operations on a day-to-day basis, is largely controlled by state calculations. It's true that an increase in resident students does increase funding, so that, you know, student enrollment is a really important thing in public school districts. However, as noted with that first chart that I showed you, even when you increase your students in order to gain more funding, it's typically not proportionate to our expenditure needs. You're still covering a gap. The state equalization aid impacts taxes, but is not very impactful to the district. Again, state equalization aid lowers taxes for residents in a property-rich district. It isn't spendable money for the school district. The district isn't necessarily seeing more funds. School district operations can't survive on one-time allocations through federal relief programs. So in the previous biennial budget, no money was provided. ESSER funds were provided, and certainly they were used, but ESSER funds were for one-time costs, not ongoing ones, or were best used for that. And then the state is lagging in how they fund public schools, and that problem continues to grow. So what has the board been doing since that time? Shelley would have got you up to about October or November. The biennial budget was approved by the governor on July 5th. On July 24th, our community held the school district's annual meeting and certified the tax levy. With the conclusion of the annual meeting and noting that we were managing a $1.4 million deficit for the 23-24 school year and had projected deficits moving forward, the board conducted an analytical process to analyze objectives, consider possible alternatives, and one of the results of that analytical process was to approve a charge for a community task force and assign the superintendent the task of formalizing that task force. Shelley spent, I think, probably 4 or 5 slides on you describing the work of that community task force. That's where I'm gonna shorten some of this presentation and get on to next steps, though I will spend a little bit of time sharing what the results of that community task force were. With a recommendation from the community task force, then in early December, the board for the last almost 2 months, through about 3 meetings, has gained information presented to them on topics such as operating referendums, updated budget projections, budget decision-making timelines, et cetera. And I'll share a little bit about that. I share all that to say we have been engaged in trying to manage the budget crisis as best we can. We've been careful with the money that we're spending. In the 22-23 school year, the board approved and we introduced the use of debt defeasance, or prepaying the debts that we have in order to keep future costs down. This school year, we implemented a leadership reorganization model that helped us realize a savings of $200,000 at the district level. I share that simply as an example of some of the cost-cutting measures when it comes to staffing, and wanting to make sure that it's clear as we look at really difficult decisions, we need to look at those at all levels, including those at the district leadership level. And that's something that I'm proud to say that we were able to do last year. We opened up additional open enrollment seats to increase student enrollment. Open enrollment are those seats made available to non-resident students. We don't get the full per pupil costs like you would for a resident student, but if you open those seats in a way that you're not increasing operating costs, that is considered additional revenue that can help close a budget deficit. And with the board's approval in October, we used a combination of fund balance and Fund 46. Fund balance is that money set aside for a time of crisis. You're in maintaining a good high quality budget, save a certain percentage. Our board tries to keep 20% of our overall budget in fund balance should it be needed. And Fund 46 is money we're able to put away at the end of each year and maintain over years to cut down maintenance costs, with the idea being that you are able to keep your facilities up in a way that you're not having to go back and incur very high priced projects as years go by. So we use money from both those funds in order to navigate or to manage the budget deficit this year. That's not considered best practice. That was considered what needed to be done in order to make this year work. Shelley would have shared with you, and I noted, the community task force met mainly in October and November. They made a presentation in early December. The recommendations of that community task force to the administration and presented to the board were to consider, and I'll note, their focus, their charge was to focus on ways of generating additional revenue in order to manage the budget deficit. So with that charge, they recommended considering a non-recurring operating referendum in November of 2024. We'll talk a little bit more about that. To pursue work on expense reduction while that's happening, which they noted also was already in process. To consider a philanthropic giving campaign. How can we look to gain money through philanthropy, not to overlap or duplicate that work of the Education Foundation, who does amazing work, but to double down, triple down, quadruple down on it, to develop and implement community-wide education on school funding in our current budget crisis. So some of what I'm sharing with you is a result of those recommendations, wanting people to feel armed with the information they need to be informed, and to continue to lobby at the state level to increase support for public education and improve the school funding formula. In planning for a deficit, one of the things I wanted to draw attention to, and you've heard me use the terms a couple times, you have revenue, money that you're gaining in order to close a budget deficit, and you have costs, money that you can cut in order to try and narrow a budget deficit. So we kicked off here this month in our budget building process for the upcoming school year, zero-based budgeting. We've always played our budget pretty tight to the vest. Zero-based budgeting is a strategic method of budgeting and helps an organization consider what expenditures are no longer required. So instead of each, we'll say, building or department being allotted a certain amount of money and determining how their budget will fit into that allotted amount of money, the process starts from what we say is ground zero and is built up from the bottom. So we're answering questions such as what I have here in front of you today in building our budget. What resources and activities are needed when considering current and future conditions? How will the budget reflect evolving conditions? What activities and programs can be removed to match the evolving needs of the organization? So a really challenging and rigorous process, but an important one when we consider the fact that every penny we spend is a really important and must be connected to a need. So what does this ultimately mean for MTSD? And Shelley would have referenced some of these things, but the difficult decisions that we have are not limited to some of the examples I have here, but we've got to answer questions now like, what cuts need to be made to people or programs if we don't have the money to run them? Are we the type of organization that is interested in carrying deficits? That's not recommended and not something MTSD has generally done. Are we ready to increase class sizes in order to close the budget deficit? Do we have to consider delaying compensation increases for teachers? Are there ways to increase revenues? And if there are, how? So I don't share any of these questions as one that I get extremely excited about, but this is the reality that we're needing to manage and navigate. And one that the board has leaned in on, that certainly I have, and the administration. And I would tell you the staff through our whole district have a really they are informed and they understand that it's an important issue and that we are working together as we continue to gain more information on it. So Shelley did not have this for you. This is my January 2024 update and providing you a number. You see the asterisk here on this slide. This is as of January 2024. We update our projected numbers every time we get new information. So you're getting this based on what information is available now. If that information changes, it can change what the projected deficit might be. So here's what I'm talking about when I say information can change or be updated. We know now, different than what we knew in December, the cost of living increase has been finalized for the 24-25 school year. We know that's 4.12%. We were estimating it before that. We're estimating that the cost of benefits will increase by 3%. We are planning for purchase services to experience a 10% increase as we look at next year. That's the highest, the second highest number on there. I'll just note, remember, I mentioned we utilized some of Fund 46, that maintenance budget that in order to manage this year's budget deficit. So without Fund 46, we've got to budget for more on the maintenance side, since it wasn't part of the budget this year. Fund 46 took care of it. Supplies and equipment, we're looking at, or we're projecting a 5% increase. Cost of insurance, we're projecting a 1.4% increase. And as we look at our increasing cost for special education services and what the state has promised to cover, we're expecting to have to cover 13% more in that category as well. So those are some of the variables we look at when we arrive at a number. With those variables, our estimated revenues for next school year are a little over $48 million. And so in terms of money coming in, if nothing changes, that's an increase of 0.5 percentage point from the 23-24 budget. When we look at what we're projecting in terms of increases to our cost, estimated expenditures, the estimate is over $52 million. That's nearly a 6% increase from the 23-24 budget. And that's based on what I shared with you on this slide here, what we're projecting forward in terms of how our costs will change for next year. Hold on one second. I'm going the wrong way. And how? Sorry. So the projected deficit for the 24-25 school year, if you asked me today, is here in front of you, a touch over $4 million. That is a very sizable budget deficit for a public school district here in the state of Wisconsin. You heard me use the term earlier, operating referendum. It's not the most popular term in the Mequon, Thiensville communities or many communities in general. An operating referendum is associated with and means that there's consideration for raising taxes to support the local public school district. The question I have here that I wanted to provide some additional information on, if a 2024 operating referendum is to be considered by our residents, when would it take place? So again, in considering methods for generating additional revenue, the Community Task Force's recommendation was November of 2024. The second bullet point on here is maybe the most important bullet point in my entire presentation tonight, because I want to be really clear and I don't want people to come out of the Zoom room thinking something that isn't. The Board of Education has not yet determined that a ballot question will be introduced to residents in consideration of an operating referendum in 2024. No decision has been made, but certainly in order to make a decision at some point, we've got to consider the topic. We've got to inform people. We've got to gain input so that the board can make a decision at some point. If a 2024 operating referendum, the board discussed timelines here early this month, resulting from a ballot question being placed on either the April or the November 2024 elections. Those are really the two choices that are to be had if there was to be an operating referendum in 2024. And based on those discussions, the administration is moving forward on a timeline that would allow the board to consider an operating referendum ballot question for the November election. If they did that, they would have to act on approving a ballot question no later than August in terms of a timeline. Why November and not April? You might wonder, well, boy, you presented all this information and painted this really bleak picture, and November is already after the 24-25 school year has started. Yep, that is one of the challenges. Here are the reasons for November versus April. With more time, a community survey could be utilized to inform the administration's recommendation for an operating referendum and ballot question. That's really important, both the administration and the board, that we're able to get input through such a mechanism with the community, amongst other ones. The zero-based budgeting process that I referred to will have been completed in time to inform stakeholders considering an operating referendum. So when we talk about wanting to ensure that our community members are informed, should there be an operating referendum, if you choose April, we will not have completed that zero-based budgeting process. And I envision that we'll have some really good information that will help inform people through that process and wherever their stance might land for or against an operating referendum. Also, 75% of our budget is made up of staffing, and there is state law around how we engage in our human resources work and non-renewal process should we be in a position that we need to cut staffing. The non-renewal process would be informed following the completion of the zero-based budgeting process and knowing the results of an operating referendum, which is really important in terms of how we work with our employees. If you looked at an April referendum and you know that staffing is something that you'll have to make some decisions on based on the results of that operating referendum. And April 1 would mean we'd have to kind of make some guesses in the non-renewal process and find out how the operating referendum works. It's just not a good way to do business in terms of our work with our very most important resource, our employees, in order to provide students what they need. I mentioned there are challenges to that. The main one being that the results of an operating referendum to manage the budget deficit aren't realized until the 24-25 school year has commenced, which would require us, as we get into July in the annual meeting, likely the board to consider another use of fund balance and or Fund 46 to balance the budget in its initial approval. And then when they get to October, actually having to approve not one, but two operational levies, because the end of October happens before the election in November. And when an operating referendum would be voted on, they would be approving one levy with an operating referendum that didn't pass and one levy with one that did, so that any money realized should an operating referendum pass be able to be used yet in the 24-25 school year. So none of those are bad challenges. They're just that. They are challenges, and part of this is the information, or a short version of the information that the board used to say, well, if we're going to consider it, it's probably better for us to consider a November timeline versus an April one. Got my next two items are, I think, a little shorter. And again, I'm happy to go back to that when we're done and answer some questions if I can. Mr. Ebert prepped you for the fact that I was going to talk a little bit about school closures due to inclement weather. For those that don't know, grew up a superintendent's son. My dad was a superintendent since I was in second grade. And so I have a longer history than many of you might think in understanding and having to manage and deal with inclement weather under the roof I lived in. Homestead High School, you might have heard, used the allotted 2 days in the calendar. Now, what does that mean? So let me help you get there. We're going to go back up to the state level and note that through the state's administrative codes, each public school district is required to provide a certain amount of instructional hours by level, and they break it up by kindergarten, grades 1 through 6, and grades 7 through 12. When our calendar committee works with me to make a recommendation then that the board approves for our school calendars, we do build in a couple extra days, specifically in the high school calendar. That's the calendar that is tightest as it relates to achieving those that instructional hours mandate. And we give ourselves at the high school a buffer of 2 days. Additionally, the calendar includes a flex day. And I know that Principal Ebert noted that that would be a day in session. I just want to provide the definition for you all. A flex day is scheduled first for instruction. And then if the district doesn't need both of the emergency or inclement weather days, it becomes a staff in-service day or a no school day day for students. That's easy for me to say. That's easy for the calendar committee to say. So I would contend, based on that definition, no student isn't coming to school that shouldn't have been planning on it on April 26th, but I understand the reality. I have a high schooler as well. With 2 inclement weather days being used here this month, that means that our high school students will have to attend school on April 26th on that flex day. The elementary and middle schools are still on track to achieve the required instructional hours. And so similar to last year, if nothing changes between now and then, that will be a no student day at our middle schools and elementary schools, but a student day for our high schools. And then the other thing, and I think this is probably why Mr. Ebert stayed on to be able to answer questions, or where he's projecting some might be that last sentence on here is an important one. We've revisited our processes and procedures for implementing a virtual learning day at the high school should we experience the need for another school closure. Mr. Ebert will tell you, Melissa, if she's still on, will tell you, many of you would tell me, virtual learning is not ideal, and I understand that. What you're weighing here, should we have another inclement weather day at the high school, is tagging days onto June or making a virtual learning day work. in the time that we're having it. And so Mr. Ebert's been working with our teachers, and our high school teachers are ready to shift to a virtual learning day should we need it. My fingers are more than crossed that we won't need another inclement weather day, but we are going to be prepared to have it. And our plan for the high school is to transition into virtual learning should we encounter that. Lastly, I wanted to provide an update. If you're paying it, if you're reading some of the newspaper articles and focused on how is the high school being affected by different decisions at the state level, there is a state mandate now for personal finance credit for each student to graduate having to have a half credit of personal finance. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of information. I'll admit that I don't have all the information at this time, and that's part of what I wanted you to know. On December 6th, Governor Evers signed what is referred to as 2023 Wisconsin Act 60. That's a bill that requires with this, starting with the 2028 graduating class. So that's our 8th graders transitioning into their freshman year next year. A student must complete at least half a credit of personal financial literacy in order to graduate from a school district. That legislation includes the fact that the instruction has to include, must include financial mindset, education and employment, money management, saving and investing, credit and debt, risk management, insurance. Those are the topics that must be covered in order to achieve that mandate. I mentioned that was December 6th. The communication we received from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction was this month, January 2nd, and I also received an update from the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. What I gained from those updates at a very high level is this: school boards should review the act and their local graduation requirements to adjust as necessary to implement the mandate. Our board is doing that. The policy committee is getting together, reviewing our current policy and considering how that would need to change. School districts need to determine if their current offerings will meet the requirements of the law. No kidding. But we are waiting for information yet from the Department of Public Instruction beyond these 6 bullet points to say what exactly does that need to include. And the DPI has shared with us that they will be working on more guidance for districts. Both Melissa and Eric mentioned that we're heavy in the space of registering for courses next year. And again, while I recognize this affects the incoming freshman class differently than it does the others, it might conjure up some questions with regard to those looking at their freshman schedules or planning further out than that. So here's what I have for you. Does the high school offer a personal finance course to students? Yes. And that course would have to fulfill the requirements that are still forthcoming in terms of what that curriculum is. One of our business ed teachers was actually on the committee that wrote the personal finance standards for the Department of Public Instruction. So I am 99.999% sure and very confident that that course would cover it. Is that course required for graduation? Not at this time. So again, the mandate will affect the incoming freshman class. I suppose if you wanted to get ahead to it as a freshman, you could sign up for personal finance your freshman year. And again, that class will fulfill that requirement. You might want to wait if you're wondering, because my next question is, can the personal finance requirement be covered with the required high school economics course? Every student takes economics at the high school. The DPI mentioned that economics might be a course that covers those. They still need to get more information to us. And so there's a maybe there. And when will we know more? I'm told soon. I called the assistant superintendent of the Department of Public Instruction today. I was on the phone with people at the Wisconsin Association of School Boards today. I have shared that there is urgency in figuring this out. In the Mequon-Thiensville School District, we don't like to guess. And so we'd like to make informed decisions and provide factual information to all of you. This is the best I can do at this time. It's a yes, not at this time, maybe, and soon. And then lastly, I'll just note, nothing I've shared is real easy. So I wanted to provide my recommendations. How can families and community members stay informed? It helps us out a lot to do what you're doing tonight, to be involved, to be engaged. And so as those emails and updates come through from your high school administration and those school counseling electronic newsletters, to read those. I understand, as Eric noted, you might not read the one that comes out 2 weeks before something happens, but at least read the one that's 24 hours beforehand. Check the news and updates that we provide on the website. We've worked to create a mailer that comes out 4 times a year. Another one of those will be coming here in the winter. If you were here and tuned in while I was sharing some updates, you'll see a lot of what I shared tonight in that mailer. Consider attending board meetings. We hold them for you however you'd like to take them in person or virtually. Continue attending these meetings and staying up to date with the communications through the MTK or short kilts, and then just participate in the school community. If there's a theme that I hear from our parents, from our teachers, volunteers are really hard to come by. And we love seeing everybody at events. But those opportunities to be together, whether it be through volunteering or attending events, gives opportunities for authentic conversations, for people to connect, and for us to continue to foster and grow a connection here in the community. So that would be my request or my recommendations in terms of how to stay engaged. It is hugely helpful to us here in the Mequon-Thiensville School District when you do. So, like I said, I'll end where I started. Just want to share my appreciation. I hope that some of what I've shared tonight has been informative. I hope that it's information that strikes you in a way that you turn and share it with someone else. Because again, I think it's really important that we're all informed here in the community at this time, and as we stare ahead at some pretty big challenges in front of us. That's what I've got.
Wow. Well, thank you, Dr. Joynt. That was a whole lot of really important salient information, and I'm so grateful for you for taking so much time tonight to share that with us. I mean, I've heard you speak on this topic before in a couple of different venues, and just really appreciate not only the critical nature of the topic, but your leadership through it, and the leadership of the Board of Education through a really challenging time. And just thank you again for taking so much time to share so many details with us here tonight. I'd like to open it up if anyone has questions that they'd like to address to either Principal Ebert or Superintendent Dr. Joynt. It seems like we have a pretty quiet group. I think we're all stunned. That was again just an incredible wealth of information. So really appreciate that.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to share it, and lots more of information to come. Like I alluded to or mentioned, information's changing, and we're updating and making available what we know with it. So and that's our promise, right? We're going to continue to be transparent. We're going to continue to share information in as easily digestible form as it is, while making sure that people have the facts and the information they need to formulate their own opinions.
And if there's anything more that we can do as a PTSO organization to support you and support the district, I hope that you will reach out to us and we'll be there for you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions? Thoughts?
Hold on. I don't know. Where did I go?
Oh, Becky, you're on. You're talking. Don't know if you mean to be.
No, I didn't say anything. I don't know where that came from.
Okay. Maybe it wasn't you. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
I've got somebody. Yeah.
You can hear. So
That's
this is.
I thought it's Nicole.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry,
what I
Nicole.
thought.
I apologize. My bad.
I don't know how I can get. I'm glad you're hearing me, because I'm trying to turn my mic on and I'm on my phone. And as I was telling you with the coffee, I wasn't sure how to use all my settings now with this new automatic update. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I've been working over at Stefan, and the teachers over there and all the special ed teachers and the paraprofessionals are amazing individuals. They are working so hard. So yeah, I want to give them a shout out, just because I've been able to witness it firsthand, how they kind of come together as a family, that whole group of employees. It's overwhelmingly encouraging. So just to piggyback off of this funding stuff that we're trying to deal with, and just let's be appreciative of everybody, kind of like what was mentioned earlier with our sharing of snacks and whatnot, and talking about how the teachers are also preparing or spending their long days with those conferences and things on those parent teacher conference nights. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, it's a good reminder. And I think anytime any of us as parents or community members have an opportunity to thank our teachers, they do so much for our students. I make a point of doing it myself, but I think I could always do more and we could always do more. So that's a good reminder, Nicole. Thank you. Well, I certainly appreciate everybody's time this evening, and I know we're getting a little late, and I know Dr. Joynt, you have some basketball to attend to, and Principal Ebert, I am sure you have other things you need to do, including circulating a JPEG that we can all share for our next meeting.
That sounds great.
So I'll release you. You're welcome to stay, but no need to. And we can just try to quickly move through the rest of our agenda for the meeting tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned, it is getting a bit late and I don't want to keep us too long. So let's see if we can move through some of these things relatively quickly. Becky, are you ready to do the November minutes? I think you are muted.
You made me self-conscious.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's my bad. I'm so
Approve.
sorry about that. That's all my fault. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
I move to approve the November minutes as we did not have a December meeting. So do I have a second? Roberta seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Aye.
Any dissents? Yeah, you go ahead. All right.
So looks like we've approved those minutes.
Yes, thank you. Treasurers, I know that Jamie O'Connor, our treasurer, is not available tonight, so Roberta is filling in.
Yes, and I was just going to, let's see, the balance for our account ending December 31st is $53,169.10. We had a little bit of income in the amount of $175 for membership and Highlander Fund. And then we had just a couple expenditures in the amount of $166.95 for the beautification committee. We had some holiday planters and then the hydrangeas that were planted in the fall. So that's that for the treasurer's report.
Excellent. And then quickly for the president's report, I'll just share in our upcoming meetings in February, we're going to be talking about the mini grants that were mentioned earlier and voting on those. In March, we have some experts coming to speak to us from Rogers Behavioral Health about our students' mental health, as well as any, kind of touching on more, not just mental health, but expanding more into issues around addiction and so forth. We're considering doing a follow-up on that with in April, maybe potentially reaching out to some of our school resource officers about consequences around some of the, the party environment we kind of tend to see as we get into graduation season and maybe even prom season. Sort of like kind of touching on some of those issues. So we want to talk, kind of isolate those two themes where we're talking more about the concern for the health and well-being of our students, and then also talking about separately, what do we need to be aware of as parents and as members of the community when it comes to consequences of behavior that may not be appropriate for our students to be engaging in. So those are some of the themes that we have upcoming. And then of course in May, we are going to be doing our officer elections. So that's kind of the typical calendar for us. If you have thoughts or ideas about what you would like to see or hear from us, I mean, we're still kind of crafting a little bit for that April meeting. I'd be more than welcome to hear your feedback, ideas. So please don't hesitate to reach out. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. Is Lee on the phone to talk about short kilts?
I don't think she is.
Oh. Okay.
But you know, if anybody needs to put anything into short kilts, they can just contact, I think it's the PTSO email, or one of us, and we can help you get something into short kilts.
Awesome. Staff appreciation. Hello, Kitty. Are you there?
Hey there. Yes. Yeah, I'm feeling a little under the weather, so I don't want to scare you with the way I look. So Kitty's gonna have to do it for now.
That's fine.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, right. So I'm really glad that the staff enjoyed sweet treats in December and hung on. It sounded like that went over really well. Everyone was real excited. So that's good feedback. Obviously I can't take all the credit. You know, Jen and Rachel and Jody and Trudy and Teresa, we're all kind of a great team. And we know what needs to be done and we get it done. So, and then of course with all the volunteers. So that's awesome. So next up would be sweet treats in February, probably the week of Valentine's Day. And I will get something out to Lee for volunteers. And that's something that we pretty much promote and, you know, rely on volunteers for that. So we'll get that started. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, I just don't know how you do it. You're amazing. So thank you for all you do. And,
I got a
for
great team. That's why.
and your team. I know that. Thank you.
Yep.
In terms of open positions, I think
Yeah.
we have found our co-chairs, right?
We
senior
have,
leadership.
yes. So I think it's okay probably to say their name. I don't know if it's official, but Tanya Bogacek and Judy Lalonde reached out to me, and they're going to be co-chairs for the senior dinner. They both have seniors, and so they're already like setting up meetings and going to town, and this just all transpired pretty much this morning. So yeah, so that's all covered. And then if anyone is interested in you know, positions, we're still kind of looking into our open positions for next year, what those are going to look like. But if anybody is interested in a you know, executive committee position or another kind of committee, you know, please reach out to us, to Julie, myself, any of the, you know, Trudy, any of the and Veronica, and any of the other board members. So thank you.
Excellent. All right, quickly, do we have anything that we want to share with the organization reports that is, you know,
So
cogent?
for area council, I think we're, you know, we're probably pretty caught up. Dr. Joynt pretty much touched on everything that was at the last meeting. The calendar, I will say though that the calendar for the 24-25 school year is complete and posted on the website, so everybody can start, you know, planning around that. And the school board election is April 2nd. And Paula Table, she will not be re-seeking re-election. And so the deadline for filing to run was January 2nd. And the following community members have filed. So Shelley Burns, Mary Gavigan, who would be a new person running, and then Andrew Hopkins, who is also would be an incumbent. So.
Excellent.
And then I'll just roll right into, I don't see Danny on for MTEF, but so oh, you know what, actually, Trudy, did you want to say anything about the Mardi Gras thing coming up? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I mean, I can read kind of what, I know that you're involved in the committee and that tickets are on sale. Did you want to say anything, or do you?
I can in my little portion of it. There are lots of raffle baskets that are getting organized. They sent out over 400 letters to local and close to local businesses, and a whole team of people that are following up on those.
I'm not on camera. What?
And those are being gathered together.
But I can't because we have to listen.
Are we?
I'm taking notes.
Hey, Becky, you're on. Your mic is on again. You got a hot mic.
And then obviously the tickets are for sale, and they're still promoting that heavily so we can get a full house there. There is the sign-up sheet that has been circulated for volunteers. The one thing that we're short on are volunteers for the performers. They're considered like street performers that would be at a Mardi Gras. And we don't have any volunteers for that yet, but the other slots for selling raffle tickets and checking people in and checking people out, those are filling up pretty quickly. And we just encourage everybody to maybe reach out to anybody they might know that might know some magic or juggling or miming or something like that, or they're quick learn. That we could get those volunteers, because it's just going to help round out the evening. So
Gotcha.
definitely, I hope everybody does get their tickets, because it's really a worthy cause. And I think you guys all know firsthand where those funds really impact our community that we have.
Great. Thank you, Trudy, for that additional information. Nicole, do we have Nicole here for voices?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Luckily, I didn't mute myself because I can't figure out how to get to the unmute part. My phone isn't like letting me do anything that I want to. But yeah, so we had our inclusion night. Best Buddies had their inclusion night on January 18th, and it was a huge success. In my opinion, I was there, and Lily Obernader did a phenomenal job speaking, and Libby also the vice president. So Libby is the president of the club, and they have currently 75 students enrolled in the club, which is pretty amazing. And just a little background that they gave is it's Homestead's chapter is part of an international nonprofit that helps people with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities. And their purpose is to help form meaningful friendships with their peers, secure successful jobs, live independently, develop self-advocacy and communication skills. And so what happened was, I think I shared a picture with you, Julie, but I don't know if you can put it up or not, or, I can try to do something later. But all of the advisors and administrators and the buddies and the Best Buddies all went out there during halftime for both the girls' basketball game and the boys' basketball game. And they recognized everybody that's put their time and effort and energy into the cause. So it was a really nice program, and it was really well done. And then we just have our next thing coming up is on Monday, January 29th for All Star Health Center. So that's this Monday. It's located at 138 Buntrock Avenue in the lower level of the building. And the center is going to be providing, it's a facility that provides full body fusion, nutrition, cooking classes, circuit training, martial arts, and lots more. They have one-on-one options and small class options. We had about 6 families come last year, so we're hoping to get about that many more this year as well, maybe more new families that want to come and find out more information. Waiver program for funding, and I believe that's all. The Voices flyer, as always, is on the MTSD page under the Family Resources tab, and that is it.
All right, so I can try to share this picture real quickly. It's kind of messy.
Be great.
Yeah, it's a nice picture. It's embedded in my email, so it's going to be a little bit messy, but
I'm not good with technology, obviously.
okay.
Yeah.
But you can see it. You get a little bit of a vibe for it. Sorry for all the other extra stuff.
Yep, that's great.
What a nice picture. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
All right, Becky, I'm sorry to do this. Are you ready to talk about boosters?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thanks for hanging out with us and sharing that with us. Appreciate it.
Side conversation with my daughter.
That's okay.
So Booster, our board was not able to meet in January just due to a scheduling conflict. But there's not much going on right now other than obviously winter sports, and seems like they're killing it. Boys and girls basketball, wrestling, hockey. It even looks like those guys are like just doing great. So I think the most upcoming thing is for boosters are planning the pancake breakfast. So I'll probably be able to share more details hopefully at the next meeting. But other than that, got nothing.
I know that was a lot, Becky. Thank you for sharing. All right, so in the interest of wrapping up, our next meeting is Thursday, February 15th at 7:30 via Zoom. Look for short kills. It's earlier in the month than typically offered. And again, importantly, we're going to be talking about mini grants. So, we want to have our membership there to provide their like insight, influence, whatever, thinking about different options that we have out there. We'll present kind of a slate of options to you that we've kind of vetted through Mr. Ebert and others to bring to you. Any old business? Going once, going twice. Any new business? All right.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, you sure can.
Trudy or whoever, for the street performers, I'm using quotes like you can see me, but for the street performers, can they be students? Is that what you want? Do you want adults? If it's students, do they get merit hours? Just
Yeah.
wondering how I can promote it.
Yeah, definitely. It can be students or adults. And yes, there would be an opportunity to have merit hours.
Okay. I'll spread the word. Thanks.
Thank you.
Trudy, if you haven't already, you might reach out to the band director, Charlie O'Brien, to see if he has any thoughts about anything the band might be able to do in terms of performing. Just a thought.
Well, we are
All right.
playing there. The jazz
Oh,
band
they
is
are?
playing
They're
there.
already set
Yeah,
up to
yeah.
play?
Jazz
Okay.
band is playing for the first hour for cocktails and hors d'oeuvres.
Oh, well, thank you, Linda.
Yep. Sorry.
Well,
Yep.
we just joined the jazz band, so I wasn't aware. So thank you.
Ah, there you
All
go.
right. Fantastic. All right. So I think with that, we just need a motion to adjourn. Unless anyone else, anything else? All right. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I motion that we adjourn. Trudy?
All right. And the second? Is that you, Linda?
It is. It is. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you,
I second.
everybody. This was a
Thank
great
you.
meeting.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Rachel, for the feedback. Yes, it was very informative. A good meeting. Thanks for spending your evening with us, you guys. It was a big ask. It was a lot of time. Appreciate it, but I'm glad we were able to kind of get through all of it. I think it was very important. So, yeah, look
Agreed.
forward to in the future.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Night.